Welcome to Season 3 of the Predator Podcast. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things predator hunting. If you're a predator hunter or wanting to become one, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Drew Schlim.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me on another episode of the Predator Podcast. I got a guest on today out of Minnesota. His name's Marshall Taylor. But before we get started, I just wanted to talk to you guys quick for a second about a rifle that I've been shooting here for a couple of months. And so what I've been shooting is a 22 ARC built by Top Gun Bluing and Repair. Sean Rinkelman built this gun for me and told me, hey, here you go, give this a whirl, put it through the test, and let's see what it can do. And I got to tell you guys, I've been very, very, very impressed with this thing. I never had any experience with the 22 ARC previously. Obviously, a pretty new cartridge, but I've been the 22-250 guy my whole life. Shot the 22 Nosler, shot lots of 223, and I will say that this 22 ARC, I'm shooting the 75 grain ELDM out of it, and I'm telling you guys, this thing is powerful, and it definitely hits harder than anything else I've shot. I would compare the way it hits. I think it reminds me like people that shoot coyotes with a 22 Creedmoor, and shoot that 60 to 80 grain bullet out of the 22 Creedmoor. I would say it's very comparable in just a pure knockdown power. Running it in the like 3,200 feet a second range. It's got a 22-inch barrel, suppressed, and it's a little bit long. And I know people will say, that 22-inch barrel is overkill for the 22 ARC, which maybe it is a little bit, but also I'm not complaining about the velocity that it's getting. So as we know in the coyote world, and at least my feelings, speed kills, and this thing is a hammer. Not to mention the accuracy. Sean knocked it out of the park. This gun is super accurate. Knockdown power is great from the cartridge, but the gun is just all around accurate. If you guys have followed my Instagram, seen my YouTube, I have some videos that have this rifle in it, and this thing's a hammer. So if you guys are in the market or you want to get something similar, I can tell you that this thing is one of the most well-built, put-together rifles that I've had in my hands, and it shows when I shoot with it. So if you guys are in the market, check out Top Gun Bluing and Repair on Facebook. I will put his link to his Facebook page in the description of this episode also, so you can check that out. So check it out if you're in the market for any rifle, but yeah, that 22 ARC is a hammer. So I would encourage you guys to check it out if you are looking for something or just trying to play around with another cartridge like me. So without further ado, we will jump into this week's episode. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Another episode of the Predator Podcast. And the reason why I got a guest on today, one of my biggest listening bases is out of Minnesota, and I have yet to have a Minnesota guest on my show. So today I have Marshall Taylor from Minnesota on, and he has a YouTube channel, Instagram, Southwest Minnesota Outdoors, and they kill the crap out of the coyotes. So I got him on, and I'm going to pick his brain. We're going to talk a little coyote hunting, a little bit about Minnesota. And anyways, here he is. Thanks for joining me, Marshall.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
So as I said, he's from Minnesota, and he shoots a ton of coyotes. So we're going to talk coyotes, and tell us how you got into coyote hunting. When did you start? And give us that rundown.
Well, as far as getting into it, it's really, I couldn't even tell you how we got into it. It was, it's me and two other guys, and we kind of started out as pretty much everyone else starts out down here as pheasant hunting and duck hunting's pretty big down here. And well, once the season closes, it's winter around here, and there's not much else to hunt. And we kind of got into trapping pretty quick. And well, once the ground freezes and it's kind of hard to run a rod through the ground, then it just turns into chasing coyotes around. And then eventually thermal became really big around here too. We live in one of the states where coyote hunting regulations are pretty much slim to none. And uh, yeah, that's pretty much how we got into it. I guess it's not a real big story or anything.
Right.
Yep.
How long have you been thermal hunting?
So I would say this would probably be our third year getting into it. We've kind of
Yeah.
been around them before that, and I remember I remember when we first kind of got into it, it's you don't want to spend any money and you want to get
Yep.
into it as cheap as possible. And
Yep.
I remember getting just kind of a cheaper night vision scope. And well, before that, even we tried to make the whole red light thing work, which I know works pretty good down south, but around here it does not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did
So just
you
being around thermals with a night vision scope, and I just remember looking through one guy's thermal and just being able to see for miles, and that was kind of my introduction to it. And I
that
think I
makes
had that
sense?
night vision scope for maybe a week, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you hunt coyotes? Like, did you try calling coyotes like in the daylight or something before you started thermal hunting?
yeah. So we always it was more so was driving around and wait until you saw a coyote, and then
Yep.
you kind of just follow it into where it goes, and then once you see what grove it goes into, then maybe it's time to talk to landowners. That's really the only way we'll still call in the daytime is if we
Yep.
know 100% where a coyote is.
Yep.
No.
Yep. 100% agree. That's the fun part about the Midwest is they are awfully tough to call in the daylight when they're or sorry, I shouldn't say the whole Midwest. I should say it just seems like kind of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois. I think even Iowa probably is similar.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, that up here, these seems like these few states, it's just for something about it, it's just they're tough in the daylight. So yeah, that's pretty much the same here. And for me, it's like it seems like it's almost impossible to call one in unless it's the last hour of light or the first hour of light in the morning, or you
Yep.
just catch one at the right spot at the right time. But yeah, so you've been thermal hunting for 3 years, and you hunt with your buddies. You hunt, right?
Yep.
Gotcha. And we were kind of talking before we jumped on here too. We both kind of do the same thing. We hunt with usually two other guys, kind of a group of three, maybe four sometimes, and makes for, at least for my perspective, makes for pretty fun time, especially when the coyotes are coming in. And I think a lot of people, it seems like they hunt in ones and twos maybe, but we were just kind of talking beforehand just about us hunting in threes and fours sometimes. And yeah, I don't know about you, but I think when you get a good night of calling and with your buddies and whatever, it's pretty tough to beat.
Yeah. No, I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah, especially when nobody's missing. That's even better.
Yeah, that doesn't happen a whole lot, but that's kind of the reason why you go with two or three other guys.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So Uh, I know he mentioned a little bit that Minnesota is kind of slim on their regulations, and Minnesota is like a wide open. You don't need a license. You don't need nothing. You can just go. I assume it's open year round.
Yeah, I mean it's 365 days, day or night. I think there is some regulations on when you can hunt with a light. And as far as thermal hunting goes, I think you can't pick up a thermal during deer season.
I got you.
That's really the state's only regulations on it.
Huh.
Yep.
But you could use lights. Like you could fully scan with lights and everything.
So we haven't tried hunting with lights in probably 4 or 5 years now. So I'm not entirely sure on if
Yeah.
that's changed,
Yep.
but
Yeah, that makes sense. Because in Wisconsin, you can only use a light at the point of impact. So like, I mean, I don't even. I mean, yeah, I guess you could if you had a thermal scanner or something, you could see them come in and then hit them with the light and shoot them.
Oh, I gotcha.
Be like the only way you could really do it, I would think. But
Okay.
you'd have to have some form of way to see them, I think. But
That'd probably be a more efficient way than scanning with a light anyways.
yeah, yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially you're in farm country, I assume, it's open. You're probably hunting a lot of open stuff at night anyways.
Yep.
But yeah. So that's kind of what you're hunting too. I assume ag fields,
Yeah.
is it flat? Is it hilly? How is that?
It's pretty flat, but we got little hills and little valleys, nothing too big, but really just big enough for coyotes to hide behind and
Yeah.
disappear when they run
Yeah.
down in those valleys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like they love those big wide open areas too though at night. Or I mean, I think they do in the daytime. You just don't see them, but I
Yeah.
think they spend a lot of time out in those areas too.
Yep.
From my perspective anyways, that's what I see. Seems like the more open it is, the more chance there is to be a coyote out there.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing down here is it's all over in this area of the state is it's just especially once crops come out, it's just cornfields and bean fields and they're just caked with snow
Yeah.
and it's just
Right.
endless.
Yeah. You guys get a ton of snow there?
Yeah, so it actually snowed quite a bit this week and last night we got freezing rain on top of that. So I think the snow is going to be pretty crunchy for
Oh,
a while.
ouch. That's not fun.
No, not at all. I mean,
That's
usually if there's enough wind, it kind of covers that sound, and we get a lot of wind here too.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. You're not even really that far from me either. And like we're supposed to get like a storm today that's got, which I'm sure you probably already got it, but
Yeah, that's probably the one we got last night.
yeah, that's what we're getting today. But yeah, we haven't had any snow yet, and seems like our snow's been really light the last few years, but those nights with crunchy snow can be tough. Like I think that's some of the toughest hunting that there is that crunchy, loud snow, and especially if you get a quiet night with little to no wind, and then if you throw a bright moon on top of it, it
Yeah.
can be some of the toughest hunting, in my opinion, at least from what
Yeah, it
my
takes the fun right
experience.
out of it. And I think that's kind of why we start. It seems like every year, as soon as the crops are out, we start hunting coyotes a little
Right.
bit sooner every year. I think this year we started, it wasn't even October yet. And
Yeah.
yeah, a little earlier every year just to try and beat some of the weather.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
And do you try to travel out of state at all to hunt coyotes, or have you?
So we've gone to South Dakota a few times before, but just being so close to South Dakota, that and the last couple of years, it just seems like the coyote population just keeps booming around here, and it's just kind of hard to leave when we have coyotes right in our backyard that need to
Right.
get shot.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. People say that to me all the time. They're like, "Why do you go other places to shoot coyotes when you have them all over around here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. It's just I don't know. It's just fun to travel. It's fun to well, I shouldn't say it's fun to travel. I prefer not to travel unless it's for hunting. So,
Yep.
there's that, but I just like to get out and just hammer on it for a few days and, get away from work and reality for a few days and see how many coyotes I can kill in a few days somewhere else.
So, what states do you travel to? I know you've mentioned Kansas a couple times before.
Yep, I'm going to Kansas again. I've hunted Illinois, which obviously I'm really close to Illinois, but I probably won't ever hunt Illinois again because you can't use suppressors there.
Yep.
So I just honestly, I have no desire to hunt without a suppressor at this point in my life. And
No, once you use one, you never go back.
yeah, so I definitely won't go there again. I'm going to Texas this year. I've called Arizona. Um, I think that's it. I've hunted like Montana and Colorado and stuff for elk and stuff, but not for coyotes, which there's coyotes all over out there, but I've never
Gotcha.
actually hunted coyotes out there. But yeah.
It's always nice to get to those easier states too, and some of those western states where the coyotes aren't so smart.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't even know what it is. I just feel like there's more of them. And I don't know. I guess it's hard to put like a finger on what it actually is, but the biggest thing that I notice is like there's just so much more um like peace and quiet. Like there's not there's not people everywhere, there's not hunters everywhere, there's not cars everywhere. Like
Yeah.
there's it's no accident to me that they feel comfortable running across the road and doing, coming out into the open when there's no person for 10 miles, like
Yeah, definitely.
it just seems like they just are so much more comfortable to be out and about because there's just not the pressure and things around.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah. So walk me through your gear setup. Like when you're going out for a night of hunting, what's all coming with you? Walk us through the details of your gun, tripod, whatever you use.
So our gear setup, this has changed pretty radically from when we first started this too. I mean, it
Yeah.
was our first year was probably just everyone had an AR-15 and no one had a
Yeah.
suppressor. And
Yep.
um, yeah, I think we still use these bog tripods, and I know there's a bunch of fancier ones out now, but it's just
Yep.
they've never let me or the other guys down, and there's really no point in spending more money. That's how I feel about it, anyways. But no, we've since we started, everyone's using suppressors now, and I think it was last year. Uh, I think it was the first coyote we shot last year. You know, that famous 223 shot when you shoot them and they chase their tail for five
Yep.
seconds and run off.
Yep.
Yeah, we watched one of those last year and we're like, yeah, we're not doing this year. And everyone kind of switched to, yeah, I guess everyone switched to 22 250s, and that just seems to be the ticket right there.
Yeah. I'm a 22 250 guy myself, so I'd
Yeah.
love to hear that.
Yeah, that's actually what I started out with when we used to hunt them during the day. I probably have a 50-year-old bolt gun in the farmhouse that we always used to shoot
Yep.
coyotes with, and yeah, that's about as flat as it gets.
Right.
Yep.
What bullet do you shoot out of? What do you guys all shoot the same thing or?
Yeah, so we're really big on the 50 grain VMAX, just because if we're shooting a little further, it seems like we can get a little more distance with the just a lot more flat trajectory with a 50 grain than we could get with a 55 grain.
Yeah, I shoot the 50 also, and
Yeah.
I've had nothing but great luck with it. I know there's people out there that are gonna say, you need a six Creedmoor or a 243 or, whatever, but I have yet to find something. No, I shouldn't say that. I have not shot a six Creed or a 20 or a 243, but I have not found anything out of all the guns I've shot that has took out coyotes like the 50 grain VMAX does. Like it just
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I can't, say this is why or this is what happens, but when I shoot them, they just usually go feet up or, stun tip over backwards or,
Yep.
whatever it may be. Do you guys reload or are you factory shooters?
So we just do all factory. I mean, we couldn't find the time to reload, and that maybe someday, but as of right now, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
So I assume, shoot the Hornady Super Performance 50 grain.
Yep, that's right.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, those are fast rounds.
Yeah, they hit hard. I mean, you can tell just by that suppressed shot making
Yeah.
contact in the dark. It just makes a different
Also,
sound than the suppressed 223 would, or even a
yeah,
243 would.
my favorite part too is running a bolt gun. It's so much quieter than a gas gun is. Just it's my experience anyhow. The bolt gun's always so much quieter than a gas gun.
That, and it's so much more peaceful. I mean, from switching to an AR to a bolt gun, you don't have that. You don't have your bolt going right under your cheek and your tube every time you shoot, and
Yep.
it gives you a little more time to think before you take that follow up shot if you
Yeah.
miss. And
Yeah.
no, I like it a lot more. I'll probably never go back. I like my ARs for prairie dog hunting and stuff like that. But
Yeah. What gun do you shoot?
so all three of us actually use Bergaros now.
Nice. Those are
Yep.
good guns. Those are
Yeah.
Yeah, they're dang good.
Yeah, they hit hard. That's what we like.
Yeah. Yep, they're accurate. They're solid. Yeah, you can't go wrong with them at all. That's for sure.
Yep. No, for buying them right from the store and pretty much not having to put anything on them. And they come
Yeah.
with them. They come with those pretty nice. They call it a stock, but really it's more of a chassis with that cheek
Oh,
riser and
yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yep. What are you guys shooting for scopes? And do you have
So
scanners? Do you have what's all going with you?
so we actually all use AGMs now. Two of
Uh,
us have rattlers, and I think we have one guy that has the varmint, the one with that rangefinder on the top.
Yep.
And yeah, before that, we never even had a rangefinder, and it's just so much nicer now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Just knowing for sure. I'm not sure how much I trust it, but I
Yeah.
mean, you can, if something says it's 100 yards away, then it's roughly 100 yards away.
Right. Yeah, that's the way I look at it too with the rangefinder is like at least it gives me an idea. Like it's not I know it's not going to be 100% accurate, but at
Yeah,
least if it gives me an idea, that's all I really need. I mean, unless you're shooting 300-400 yards, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference if they're inside, 300 yards.
yeah. We usually like them nice and close. That's
Yeah.
that's my big thing, anyways. I'm usually the
Right.
one that's doing all the calling, and I'm kind of at the point where whoever else wants to shoot, I'm fine with trying to call them in as close as I can. That's where I
Yeah,
get my satisfaction from.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. Do you guys use a scanner at all or just everyone's on guns and
So I kind of said I'd never get a scanner just because I said if I was going to get a second thermal, I might as well just sell my first one and get a 640 resolution or something. But I've never had any problems with that 384 resolution rattler. And I
right?
said it'd be nicer to walk into spots without holding my gun right up to my face and walking 500 yards in or whatever we got to do. So, yeah, this year I actually kind of broke down and got one of the new AGM scanners.
Yeah, those AGM scanners are nice though. So I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
and it's one of those things because I hunted a lot without a scanner. Especially like as you said, like you're getting into thermal, like you're trying to, do it on a budget. It's expensive, whatever. But so I did a lot without a scanner, and then it's one of those things that it works fine and you can get away with it, but then like once you have the scanner you're like, oh man, how did I hunt without this thing? Like what?
Yeah, that's pretty much my thought process exactly. Is I don't know how I didn't buy one of those right away.
Yeah, and it's you don't realize too like what one. I don't know how often it happens to you, but a lot of times we'll be walking in and all of a sudden, oh, there's a coyote already out here, already right there that I don't know that I would see. I would probably spook it, or maybe it depends on the night. If it's a good dark night, maybe you don't, or if you're quiet. But I think a lot of times we would miss those opportunities, or like you see one walking in, and like I did it the other day. I saw one walking in, just dropped my tripod, boom, tipped it over, like
Yep.
just like that. And I feel like not that it might happen, 5 or 6 times a year, but still, that's 5 or 6 more coyotes.
Yeah, that adds up real quick.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
I
No.
think we had that happen to us once before we had a scanner, and then it kind of turned into you're walking with your gun up to your cheek,
Yeah.
and yeah, it my arms sure appreciate it. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because even running the scanner, your shoulders will get tired if make a long stand. But
yeah,
that it's nothing like swinging the gun around.
yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier to pull your scanner out of your chest pack, take a look around, put it back in,
Yeah,
and walk another 50 feet or whatever you got to do.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so you're the Colin Wiz in the group. So
I wouldn't say that, but
walk us through how what you want in a stand. Like, do you want a crosswind? Do you want a wind in your face? Is there anything specific that you look for when you're going into a stand?
so I guess every stand's kind of different. I usually
Yep.
prefer it right in my face unless I know we're kind of in a good layout where they're going to try and wind us and they can get behind us real easy. I mean, that's happened probably two or three times already this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, even some nights with zero wind is totally fine with me. And if they get to the point where if they're close enough to scent us with no wind, they're close enough to shoot.
Right.
That's what kind of
Yeah.
what I've found out anyways.
Right. The hardest part for me, I'm in like kind of hilly country though. So like the hardest part for me is when there's no wind. Usually it just goes over thermals. So like if you're on a hill, like your thermals are gonna suck right down into this draw that you're trying to call them out of. So
Yeah.
like we no wind is a challenge for me just because it's so variable and kind of goes everywhere, but it seems like it always just goes where you don't want it to go. Like it's
Yeah.
just like if I was trying to call them out of that bottom, then it would be fine. But of course they're right where the wind is blowing is right where I think they're gonna come from.
Yeah. Never fails.
Yeah. And okay, so wind in your face. So yeah, you're hunting flat. I could definitely see that for hunting more flat ground and open ground. Um, it seems like to me too, the more open of the ground you're in, it seems like a lot of the coyotes will rely on their eyes more than
Yeah.
their nose. Just because they're used to being able to see out there and they're comfortable in that habitat, but you get into the woods and the brush and whatever where they can't see, a lot of times they're gonna go for the wind.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty open over this way. I mean, most of the time when we watch them come in, we can see them come from at least a mile away.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's usually a long wait and it's usually a long battle to try and call them in because you got to kind of keep their attention on you
Right.
but at the same time you don't want to overcall it and you don't want to push them away or spook them or whatever.
That's interesting. So how do you attack that? Like if you see one coming from a mile away, right? Are you just thinking I'm leaving the sound play, whatever's playing? Am I just letting them come? Like how do you play that?
So I usually just kind of do like some vocals and try and see if, first of all, I see if I can get a howl back and see if they're even interested in another group of coyotes. And then you got to figure what time of year is it? Are they getting kind of territorial yet? Or what are they doing? And,
Right.
but yeah, usually if I can get a howl back, I can usually get them to come in.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I usually feel pretty confident with that too. So let's say you get a howl back, you see them or they're coming, whatever, and they hang up at, 600 yards. What's your move?
So at that point, it's kind of, if they're hanging up at that point and they're not coming in, I might let them kind of walk away a little bit. Maybe give them a little bit of time before I switch to like a bunny call or just something simple and stupid just to see if I can try and pique their interest one more time. And usually if they're not coming in from that, I know they're not coming in. That's probably time to stop calling,
Right.
time to
And then
stop educating them.
so if you can see so far, and see them a long ways away, do you ever just move closer to them or try to?
So it also depends on if that's in the fall before we got snow on the ground, 100%.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's you'd have to cross so many fence lines and hop through so many fields, and we might
Yeah.
not have permission for all these fields. And
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah,
yeah,
and
so
then
then you
the
kind of
snow is
just play
another
the
challenge.
long. What's that?
And then the snow is another challenge.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. Hmm. So if you're on a general stand, you obviously we assume there's coyotes in every stand we make, but
Yep.
what like let's say so this episode's gonna release probably around the 1st of January ish. So let's
Okay.
say it's that time of year and you're gonna go on a stand. How are you gonna start the stand? How long are you on stand and what all are you gonna play?
So usually kind of in that January area, I just assume I'm probably not always right, but I just assume that breeding season's about to kick off, and especially this year we've seen so many groups of three, and I just know that one of those coyotes is going to have to bite the dust, and one of those coyotes is going to get kicked out of that group of three. So I kind of have a good map in my head on where I remember those groups of three are, and then I
Yep.
might go back and maybe play some lone howls or some lone female howls, and that usually kind of does the trick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You just figure that coyote that got left out is looking for, even if it's not looking for a mate, it's looking for another group to try
Right.
and get in with.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And then if that doesn't work, what's your next move?
So if that doesn't work, I kind of try and find the hungry coyotes and go back to those simple rabbit calls that I was kind of talking about earlier.
Right. Do you play much for like fight sounds, pup distress, stuff like that?
So we do a lot of pup distress, but we usually only do that if I guess I told you earlier when you asked about like if a coyote's hanging up at 600 yards or so, I kind of forgot to mention that that's usually when it's time to do pup distress.
Yep.
Most of the time, pup distress gets played when a coyote gets missed and you got to try and get
Yep.
them back.
Right.
But
Yeah.
no, there's usually a lot of pup distress that goes on over here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually my go-to too, right after I shoot or somebody shoots or whatever, is just get that call back on as fast as I can.
Yeah, it
And
usually works every season of the year too.
yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely does. It works good. And I find myself hard not to play a pup distress at any point in the year whenever I'm on a stand.
Yep.
It's like that last ditch effort. Like, okay, if they don't come to this, they're not coming.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that's after pup distress, it's usually time to pack it up.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Um, so do you think there's anything that you do differently than what you envision most people do? Like, is there something that you think maybe that you do differently than most?
Shoot, that's a good question. I'd say how we hunt is pretty textbook, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, now with the scanner, most of the time we scout a little differently than I would say most people scout. We used to just kind of try and get up as much land and as much permission as possible, and then from there figure out where the coyotes are at. Now we do that a lot differently, and we scan first and find out where these coyotes are, and then we go ask for permission.
Right.
And that saves us a lot of time, and it's been a lot more effective.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I mean, realistically, a lot of, I think anyways, majority of people probably aren't even scouting them at all. Like most people are just going out there, throwing the call out. And if they call one in, great. And if they don't, oh well. Right.
That's kind of how we started too. And I mean, it's more so throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks, and
Yeah.
you're gonna get those results too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Nope,
And then when,
you get as much out of this as you put in. And everyone
yeah.
gets lucky every once in a while. But if you
Yep.
want real results, you're gonna put in the work.
Right. Yep. And that's what I always say is like, I just don't like wasting my time. Like,
Yeah,
it's, I mean, yeah, do I like to go hunting with my buddies and whatever? Absolutely. But when you go out and make 8 blank stands, it's not that fun anymore. Like, it's especially when it's cold and it's windy, like whatever, I mean, you know how it is. And not that we don't have those nights, but at least they're not often.
yeah, yep.
And yeah, is there is is there anything unique about Minnesota that in your mind that when it comes to predator hunting?
So I would say probably the best part about Minnesota is that I think we talked about this earlier, but there's really no restrictions around here unless
Right.
you're trying to thermal hunt during deer season. I think those are the only 2 weeks that you can't pick up a thermal in the state and try and call a coyote. Otherwise, I'd say the land is it's pretty much just open fields after harvest, and
Right.
yeah, to the
Do you,
horizon is where you can hunt them. And
yeah, right. Do
it's
you
pretty
guys
awesome. It can be awesome and it can be overwhelming at the same
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
sure like, from the outside looking in, you get this big wide open area like where do you start? But I guess you kind of already answered that is, you guys will scout and find where they're at before you're just gonna go, throw a dart at the board and
Yep.
take off after it.
Yep.
So,
Before that too, we mainly used to I mean, most of the time when we'd hunt with the thermals, we wouldn't even pick up a call. We'd just find a dead pile and talk to a farmer, and it was really as simple as that. It'd be a long
yeah.
camp out, and when it gets pretty cold, that gets to
Yeah.
It gets old really quick.
Yeah, I bet. It's probably fun when they come in, but I bet it's not that fun, especially when you're like, especially now looking back on it, that you call all the time. Like, it seems like your patience is gone, you know? At least for
Yeah.
me, like sitting around, like I'm like, let's just go make stands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd rather make three stands than sit in one spot for an hour and not do anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd have to agree with you.
How long are your stands typically? Do you have like a special or idea of how long you like to stay, or do you just kind of wing it? And
So I wouldn't call it winging it, but like I said, it depends on where we're hunting too. Usually if I'm at a stand for 15, 20 minutes and I don't see anything and I don't hear a peep, it's usually time to get out of there.
yeah,
But if I'm in a stand and I know there's been some howling at us and we can kind of see them, like I said, you can see them from at least a mile away most of the time. That's kind of usually when you try and get in a calling match with them and
yeah,
try and get them to come over your way. And
right.
those can last well over an hour sometimes.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree. I'm usually like if nothing here, see nothing, unless I like know I'm in a great spot where I know there's coyotes or assume that they're there, whatever. I would stay maybe 30 minutes, but usually like by 20 minutes, if I haven't seen or heard nothing, I'm usually starting to think about uh heading it out. But yeah, I've definitely seen the hour and 20 minute stand, you know, where you just keep working them, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, they finally just come in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I think people in the West think that we're nuts because you'll say, "Oh, I killed them at the 55-minute mark," or I've done that where you killed one and all of a sudden you look down at your remote and it's 55 minutes or hour five or whatever. And most people in the West are like, "Dude, I would have had four stands done by that time."
I always say that we can, like guys like you and I could go out west and we can hunt coyotes out there, but guys from out west could not coyote hunt over here. They
Yeah.
would, but they probably would think they're wasting a lot of time and they wouldn't have as much fun.
Yeah, it's just so
That and
different.
it takes a little more than a squeaking rabbit to. I've heard stories about guys calling in coyotes with like squeaky dog toys out west before.
Oh,
That's
I
just how
believe
easy
that.
they are.
Yeah, yeah, I hate using the word easy because they're not easy, but it's just different. Like
They're just not educated as much and there's not as many people out there as there is in this part of the world.
yeah,
And the area of the state we're from especially is I mentioned dead piles. This is kind of the land of everyone has hog barns and everyone has cows down here, and
yep,
some of the coyotes don't have to work as hard for food here as
same
they do
here.
in some of these western states.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's just so different. It's all like I can say is like what I notice like when I'm out in Kansas is like if I get to the 8 minute mark in a stand, I'm like, well, I might as well pack up and go home. Like,
Yeah.
they're
Hmm.
not coming. But then like if I'm at the 8 minute mark here, I might be at my second sound or like it's just it's just different. And uh yeah, I think that truthfully people in the West could come here and they would kill coyotes eventually.
Yeah.
They would just be like it just would they would not be able to take their Western tactics and just come here and just instantly and start killing coyotes. Like it would just take time to figure out. And I would argue that it took me a little bit of time to figure out like hunting out of state also. Like we killed one coyote the first year we went to Kansas. Like I'm pretty sure that most people out there would have laughed at me, for that, but we learned so much. We saw so many coyotes. The thing for us was we were seeing like 20, 30 coyotes like in a day, and we're like, so we're just mind blown because obviously if we're here and we see, if we saw two or three in a day during the daytime, we would be like, holy smokes, this is a heck of a
Yeah.
day.
It's crazy thinking that's the same animal too. It's just different states. Every state has them. They're just everything's different.
Yeah, it's just it's just what I always like the analogy. Are you a deer hunter?
Yeah, so I usually go out every couple of years. Like I said, we're shotgun zone, so I
Yep.
try not to go out every year. But if I need to
Yeah.
get some meat in the freezer, I'm a deer hunter.
Yeah. Okay. So the analogy that I always use is like people, I'm like, so if you had, 8 people hunting 200 acres for deer, the deer would act differently, right? They would eventually get onto that. They would move differently. They wouldn't be there as much, like whatever. But then if you had one person hunting it at the right time or nobody hunting it, of course it'd be full of deer, right? So it's just
Yep.
like it's to me it's kind of the same thing. Like everything is kind of based on pressure obviously habitat and food and all that stuff is gonna trump a lot of pressure. A lot of it to me is just the pressure overall.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned pressure because even the pressure from deer season, especially around here, we see we don't see coyotes for probably 2 weeks after deer season. And
Oh,
I
agreed.
heard your podcast a couple weeks ago. You were talking about that too, and I
Yep.
never really thought about it like that before you mentioned it.
Yeah, I it's definitely something that I noticed, but the other thing that I think of it too is like think about how many deer that people hit poorly or they don't know they hit or they hit it
Yep.
in the leg or whatever. I mean, like we were kind of talking about, there's slugs flying everywhere, like whatever. People who make bad shots, deer run wherever, run onto the neighbors, like there to me, in my eyes, there's dead deer laying everywhere. Like
Yep.
there's food everywhere, and to me, I think that's hard. That easy food is, unless you can see it, is easy or is difficult to compete with. Can you guys hunt bobcats there?
So our area of the state, we don't really have bobcats. Up north, I'm not really sure what they're. I think there's a special season for it. It's a special tag. It's nothing over the counter, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, we've
Hmm.
it's pretty much two different states. I mean, Minnesota's so big, most people don't even like
Yeah.
I if I were to leave right now and drive to Dallas, Texas, I think it'd be 11 or 12 hours. And if I were to drive 11 hours up north, I don't even think I'd be to the front of the state yet or the
Yeah.
top of the state.
Yep. Huh. Yeah. I never thought of that either, honestly, but it
Yeah.
makes
And
sense.
obviously, we don't have an interstate that runs straight north, and that has a
Yeah.
lot to do with it, but it really is a big state. And once you get kind of to the northern part, it's just a different landscape, and there's hills and there's trees. And even, I mean, they got bears, wolf,
Yep.
bobcats up there, and we don't have any of that down here.
Right. Have you ever seen a bobcat down in your area or anything?
I have not, but I've heard of people in Iowa that have seen them like within 20 miles from here, and but I've never seen any.
Hmm.
No.
Interesting. There is some in South Dakota, I presume.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't. I know Nebraska has them. I think
Yep.
Nebraska has a special season for them, but South Dakota, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's lots of them in Kansas,
Yeah,
but they're fun. I hope that you get to shoot one someday.
yeah.
They're
I mean, every year we kind of say we're going to get out to Nebraska and make a trip out of coyotes and maybe get a bobcat or two, but it's just we just get busier here every year, and we get more land to try and get the coyotes that are here first.
right. Yeah, that's not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, if you see us in like South Dakota or Nebraska, we're not killing anything here. Is the
Yeah,
thing.
that makes sense. How much do you guys hunt? I mean, do you hunt a couple times a week or how do you try to get out as much as you can?
Yeah, I usually try and get out as much as I can, and we're kind of getting into the time of the year now where it's trying to get out at least 2 or 3 times a week, and but we also have to find the coyotes first. And like last night I was just out driving and scanning, and I think I saw one coyote after putting 50 miles on, so
Oh,
which means
really?
tonight I pretty much have one spot to do.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Huh. Yeah, that's smart too. I guess, take advantage of that when you can see that much. I mean, why wouldn't you? But
yeah,
so you're doing like that the day before and then you'll go hit those spots the next night.
yeah, depending on, if I have to talk to a landowner that I haven't talked to yet, or maybe I kind of it kind of looks like it's moving weird and it might not belong in that spot. And it could be like if I get the idea in my head that it could be 20 miles down the road the next night, I'll go back and
Yeah.
just confirm first. We also use trail cameras now to try and find these coyotes. And
Yep.
if, yeah, we don't necessarily go out after seeing a coyote on this camera once. We kind of try and pattern it first. And once we decide, well, it's here at this time pretty much every night, then that's kind of when it's time to move in on those ones.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That would be, I mean, it's always helpful to know where they are. Like it's the biggest thing. That's like what I talked about 2 weeks ago that we talked about on that podcast is like one of the, at least we feel like in this, our area, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, like one of the, if not the biggest factor of anything for us is proximity. Just being
Yeah.
close to them is the most, probably I would argue that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's, you definitely got to take any advantage you can get. And it seems like for me, like every time I get a picture of a coyote, I'm always like, oh, there's a coyote. Let's go get it. And then I'm like, wait, the wind is completely wrong for that spot. So it ends up,
That and you might not see them on that same trail camera ever
yeah,
again.
right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they bounce along. They bounce around quite a bit around here, especially like I said, once crops come out and they're just
Yeah.
everything's open and they want to explore and they want to find food.
Do you ever hunt them in the summer?
So we really have not, unless like I said, we know where they're gonna be. Like if we got a coyote that's munching on someone's dead pile and someone calls us, but
Yeah.
otherwise we don't really try and call them out of the corn.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you probably got seeds of corn. Do you have, well, if you have cattle, I'm sure you got some alfalfa there.
Yeah, I mean, we got alfalfa and we got grass and a lot of open pasture too. But the way I think about it is they're not coming out of that corn unless they absolutely have to. And most of the time, the summers here too are just so humid and we don't really want to take out the
Yeah.
thermals at night.
Yeah.
And
And the
it's
bugs
no
are
fun.
horrible.
What's that?
And the bugs are horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was one, I think it was 2 summers ago, we're sitting in a spot because we knew these coyotes were going to show up in July and we just could not take the mosquitoes anymore.
Yeah, they're
It was
bad.
like no coyote is worth this.
Yeah, I no, I agree. I I'll go a little. Just like I'll kind of try to fend them off on my deer hunting property and stuff. But like I like that like end of August, early September kind of time frame seems to be really good for me. And then obviously I'll go here and there during the fall, like during deer seasons and stuff. But like normally for me, it's like December because like our gun season goes till this year was December 1st. So once our gun season's over, kind of really kicks off like getting after it hard for me.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'd kind of have to say the same for us. I mean, we start in the fall, but we kind of call that our preseason, just
Yep.
right before deer. Try and get as many as we can while you can still wear a t-shirt and
Yeah.
enjoy it a little more than like
Yeah.
what the weather's doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. How do
That and
you?
they're nice and young and dumb, and we
Yeah.
usually get, I wouldn't say we shoot pups, but we definitely get the yearlings and we
Yeah.
take care of them first.
Yeah. They're fun too when you get a whole batch of them coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be loud too, and it's kind of overwhelming, especially when you haven't been out in 5 months and you got these loud young coyotes coming in at you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's fun though, and it's keeps you busy, and I always say that it keeps me out of trouble and kept me out of trouble. So I'll
Yeah.
have to keep doing it. But yeah, yeah. Is there anything else that you can think of that you want to talk about, or that you do, or anything else you want to share?
Nothing that pops right off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you want to tell us where to find your YouTube, your Instagram, all that good stuff? Obviously, I'll put links and stuff below in the description for you, to
Okay.
so everyone can find you. But just give us a rundown and tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find our Instagram at Southwest Minnesota Outdoors. It'd be SWMN then 2 underscores, just outdoors. And then I believe our YouTube is SWMN Outdoors TV.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yep.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time, and everyone will have to get over, give you a follow, check out your YouTube, and hopefully keep up with all the dogs you guys are gonna hammer this year yet.
Hey, I appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Predator Podcast this week. Go check out my description below. You can find Marshall and his pages and check him out. And for all my Minnesota listeners, thank you. I appreciate you guys all for listening, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So I appreciate you guys, and thank you guys for listening. So if you guys want to, find me on Instagram, Predator Podcast _Drew. Send me a message. Let me know what you're up to. Let me know how the hunting's been for you. Send me some pictures, whatever. I'm always like hearing from you guys. So check out my YouTube, more video content coming over there. And we will be back next week for another episode of the Predator Podcast. But until then, shoot straight.